Hey guys, welcome back. In this lecture, I'm going to cover how to validate a sign-up form on the client side in Vue.js. As you can see from the final output, when I press the sign up button with all the input fields empty, error messages appear above the sign up form. When I enter the wrong email address, I get a different validation error, this time invalid email. Finally, I'm going to restrict the length of the password to be at least 8 characters. In that process, I'll be showing you how to create and bind user object properties to the input fields. Then I'll be showing you how to attach an event to the form or a button inside. After that, I'll be showing you different ways of preventing the default form submission. Then I'll be showing you how to validate input fields if they are empty or not, as well as email and password validation. Finally, you're going to learn how to accumulate all the errors in the errors array and show them on the view above the sign-up form. I'm very excited to show you them all. A lot to cover. Let's get started. First, I'm going to do is to create a user object which will have 3 properties in it, representing 3 input fields, which are name, email, and password. In the signup view component, add script tags in between the template and style tags. Then declare the export default object, like so. This is where we are going to add all of our JavaScript code for this component. Next, define a data model, which is a function that returns an object. Then declare a property called user : the value of the user property is going to be a JavaScript object. In there, I'm going to create 3 properties. The first one is name : I'm going to set its initial value to an empty string, comma, email : empty string, comma, the last property is password and its initial value is empty string as well. Now we have the properties that we need. Let's go ahead and bind these properties to the input fields. First, bind the name property to the name input field using v-model directive. Go to the name input field at the top, and before the self-closing angle bracket, type v-model equals. Inside the quotes, I'm going to bind the name property of the user object. So user.name. This name here must be matched with the name property inside the user object in here. Let's bind the email property to the email input field next. Inside the email input field, before the self-closing angle bracket, type v-model equals. Inside the quotes, type user.email. Then in the password input field, do the same. Before the angle bracket, v-model equals user.password in between the double quotes, like so. It's really important to create properties inside the data model first before binding them to the view. Otherwise, Vue will throw the undefined property error. Next, attach a click event to the sign up button. Go to the sign up button element, and before the closing angle bracket in the starting button tag, bind a click event to the button using v-bind : click equals. Add the callback function inside the double quotes. I'm going to call it sign up button pressed. Actually, there is a shortcut for binding a click event to a button. Instead of using v-bind : click, I can simply use @click, which will do the exact same thing but looks much cleaner. Now let's go ahead and declare this function. In Vue 2, all the functions must be declared inside the methods object. So after the data function, add comma, then methods colon a pair of curly braces. In there, declare a sign up button pressed callback function. Like so. Let's console log something so that we can see that the button is actually working. So I'm going to say sign up button is pressed. If you haven't already run the app, go to terminal menu at the top, new terminal, then go to the project directory and run the npm run dev command, which will give you the URL. Go to the URL on the browser and make sure to go to the sign up route. Let's open up the browser console to see if the button press is working. Hit the sign up button. Oh wait, something has happened. Two things have happened. There is a question mark added to the URL, as well as I don't see the console log message. Let me click the sign up button one more time to see what happens. Now I can see the sign up button pressed message in the developer console. But why it's not working the first time? Well, when I click the sign up button for the first time, it basically reloads the page and tries to submit the form data via GET request. That's why we see the question mark in the URL. This is the default behavior of a form element when a button inside it is pressed. As you can see, even though I did not add the type attribute to the button element, the form can still be submitted. Also, you can see the console message is actually visible on the browser console for a second, then it quickly disappears as the page gets reloaded. Now we know the problem. There are two ways to prevent the default form submission. The first option is to call the prevent default method on the click event object. Let's see how to do that. To access the event object inside the sign up button pressed function, pass the parameter called event in between the parentheses. Now call the prevent default method on the event object. So event.prevent default, opening closing parenthesis and semicolon, like so. Switch back to the browser and I can see the message on the console for the first time onwards when I click the sign up button. Perfect. Also, there is no question mark in the URL, as well as the page does not get reloaded. Nice. Instead of using the prevent default function on the event object, I can simply add the prevent modifier to the click event using the dot notation. So after @click, add dot prevent. That's it. Now I do not have to use the event prevent default method anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it, as well as the event parameter that was passed into the sign up button pressed function. Nice. The second option is to attach on submit event to the form element rather than attaching a click event to the button inside. So get rid of the click event from the button in here. Go to the starting form tag and attach the submit event with the same callback function that I have used in the button below. So @submit equals sign up button pressed inside the double quotes, like so. To stop the default submission, we can use either prevent default method on the event object or just use prevent modifier to the submit event, similar like before. So dot prevent after submit, like that. Let's try it on the browser and you can see it brings the exact same results like before. Next, I'm going to check if any of the input fields are empty. For that, get rid of the console message inside the sign up button pressed function. Then I'm going to check if the name input field is empty. So if opening and closing parentheses and opening and closing curly braces, in there I'm going to check name property in the user object. So this dot user dot name equals an empty string. Then I'm going to console log name is empty. Let's see if it works. Nice. Instead of using an empty string, I can simply do the same check by just adding an exclamation mark in front of this keyword to turn this into a Boolean value and get rid of equals and double quotes. This condition will be true when the value of the name property is empty. Let's make sure it's still working. Great. Let's do the same to the email field. After the first if condition, I'm going to say if opening closing parenthesis and opening closing curly braces, inside the parenthesis exclamation mark this dot user dot email, indicating if the email field is empty, console log email is empty, like so. Finally, for the password, to save some time, I'm going to copy the email if block and paste it below in here. Then change the user.email to user.password as well as in the console log message. Let's test it out in the browser. When I click the sign up button without typing anything, I get all 3 error messages on the browser console. We have successfully validated all of our input fields, whether they are empty or not. Next, let's accumulate the error messages into an array. To do that, declare a property called errors inside the data model. So after the user object, add a comma and declare errors colon. The value of the errors property is going to be an empty array, like so. This is where I'm going to accumulate all validation error messages when the sign up button is pressed. Then I'll be showing them on the view in a list format above the sign up form. So in the name if block, get rid of the console log message and type this dot errors dot push opening closing parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, I'm going to say name is empty in between the double quotes, like so. Do the same to the other two. This dot errors dot push opening closing parenthesis email is empty in double quotes, and get rid of the console message below. Finally, replace the console message with this dot errors dot push opening closing parenthesis and password is empty in quotes. Now I'm going to console log this dot errors to see if it's working as expected, like so. Switch back to the browser. This time I'm going to leave all the input fields empty and hit sign up, and you can see all 3 error messages appear on the browser console, but this time inside an array. Nice. Let's see what happens when I click the sign up button again. Now I got 6 messages. Why? This is because every time when I click the sign up button, the error messages have been appended to the errors array. To avoid this behavior, we need to clear the items in the errors array every time a sign up button is pressed. So inside the sign up button pressed, at the top, before pushing any item to the errors array, type this dot errors equals empty array, like so. Let's try it again. Every time I click the sign up button, when all the inputs are empty, I can see only 3 error messages. Nice. When I type some text in the name field and hit sign up button, I can only see 2 error messages representing email and password fields in the errors array, none for the name field. That's exactly what we want. Now we have errors. Let's show them on the screen. To do that, I'm going to create a div above the starting form tag with 3 semantic UI CSS classes, which are UI space message space red, which will create an empty rounded red bordered box like this. Also add the big class at the end so that the error message text as well as the box will look larger. Now let's show the actual error, which could be a single or multiple messages. Define an li element in here. Then I'm going to loop through the errors array in here using v_for directive. So in the starting li tag, hit space v-for equals double quotes. Inside the quotes, there will be 3 parts. The third part is the array that we want to loop through, which will be errors, and the keyword in the middle, and the variable that holds each item from the array, which I am going to call error. And you can see there is an error when I mouse over the line that says elements in iteration expect to have v-bind : key. Hit space and : key equals double quotes. And the value of this must be unique. Luckily, we can get that unique value from the index of the array on each iteration. So after the error variable on the left, add comma type index, which will have index value on each iteration. Whenever you have more than one variable on the left side of the loop signature, we need to wrap them in parentheses. Then type index inside the quotes in here, and the error is gone. Then render the error message in between the li tags. Double curly braces, then error inside, which is the variable declared in here. Switch back to the browser and we can see the error message box is empty by default. When I click the sign up button, we can see all the error messages on the view. Nice. But we do not want the error message box to be visible by default or whenever there is no error message. To show and hide the error message box, I'm going to add a condition to that div. Check to see if the length of the errors array is greater than 0 or not. This way the error message box is only visible when there is an actual error. In the starting div tag, after the class attribute, hit space and use a directive called v-show equals and double quotes. Add the condition in there. So errors.length greater than 0. As you can see, the error message box is hidden by default. When I click the sign up button and all the input fields are empty, then the error message box is visible on the screen. Let's add data to all the input fields, then click sign up button and I can see the validation error message for email. This is the browser default email validation that we do not want, as we are going to do our own email validation in just a moment. To get rid of this, all we have to do is to add no validate attribute to the starting form tag, like so. Let's test it out one more time, and I can see the error message box is hidden when all the input fields are not empty. Great. Next, I'm going to validate user email. For that, I'm going to use regular expression function called valid email. So go to the methods object. After the sign up button pressed function, add comma and valid email. Opening closing parentheses and opening closing curly braces. This function takes email as an argument and returns true if the email is valid. So pass the email parameter in between the parentheses. Inside the function, define a variable called RE, short form of regular expression, equals, I'm going to copy and paste the email regular expression. Then run the test method on the regular expression object, passing the email like so, and add a return statement in front of it. Now I can use this function to check if the email is valid or not. In the if block, where I check if the email field is empty or not, add else statement. Then create another if block in there. This time I'm going to check if the text entered in the email input field is a valid email or not. Let's call the valid email function inside here. In Vue, we use this keyword when we call a function that is declared inside the methods object. So this dot valid email, opening closing parenthesis, then pass the user email, which will be this dot user dot email. This function will return true if the email is valid, but what we want is the opposite, so that the if condition will be true when the email is invalid, and we can set an invalid email message to the errors array in here. So add the exclamation mark in front of this. Then this dot errors dot push, opening closing parenthesis, and I'm going to say invalid email in double quotes like so. Let's test it out. I'm going to type some text to all the input fields and hit the sign up button, and I get the invalid email error message. Then I'm going to clear the email field. I get an email is empty message. So both cases are working as expected. Let's type the valid email and hit sign up. The errors are gone. Perfect. Finally, I'm going to do the password validation. In there, I'm going to check if the password has at least 8 characters or not. So similar to the email if block, I'm going to add the else statement to the password if block. Then I'm going to check if the password has at least 8 characters. In there, I'm going to type this .user.password. To check the characters count of the string, I can use .length property like so, less than 8 like so. If it's true, then add a new error message to the errors array inside this if block. So this .errors.push and opening closing parentheses inside the double quotes, I'm going to say password must be at least 8 characters long like that. Switch back to the browser. I'm going to fill the name and email fields correctly and type only 3 characters in the password field and hit sign up. I can see the password error appears on the screen. Nice. As soon as I type more than 8 characters and hit sign up button, the error is gone. That's awesome.